gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Robert's Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. NCAA College Football Week 2. Wow, we had some very poor games played in Week 1. We had some good games played in Week 1. As for here in Robert's Sports Show, win and loss 22-7. Alright, I'll take that. Against the spread, 10-13. Over under, 13-10. So we did 30 games, straight up picks, and then 23 of the over under and against the spread. We're going to have 29 games here we're doing straight up picks on, and then some against the spread and over under. Now, when the FBS teams play the FCS teams, it doesn't give me the line for those against the spread and over under, so I just do the straight picks. One thing we're going to start here in Robert's Sports Show here in 2018 is each week kind of go over some of the stat leaders from the previous week. So the top 3 quarterbacks in, there's so many different stats you can look at with this. I'm looking at pass percentage, so completion percentage. Because, I mean, that's one of the biggest stats to me, at least. I mean, you throw 50 passes and you're able to complete 80% of them, you're a pretty decent thrower. So Steve Montez of Colorado was 22-25, 338 yards, 4 touches, 1 interception, a completion percentage of 88, and a passer rating of 246.4. Ty Wiggers from Eastern Michigan was 18 for 21, 238, 2 touchdowns, 85.7 completion percentage, passer rating of 212.3. Mason Fine out of North Texas, 40 of 50. 444 yards, 3 touches, 80% completion ratio, passer rating 174.4. Some of the top rushers, we had Nico Evans out of Wyoming, 42 carries for 279 yards at 6.6 yards a carry, along with 56 and 3 touchdowns. Emmanuel Escapa out of Rice, 49 for 254, averaging 5.2 a carry, 52 long, and 1 TD. And then Trayvon Williams out of Texas A&M, 20 for 240, averaging 12 yards a carry, had a long of 73 and 3 touches. Colorado State had 2 of the top 3 receivers when it comes to receptions. Preston Williams out of Colorado State, 15 for 237, a long of 69, averaging 15.8 yards a catch, 2 touchdowns. Scott Miller out of Bowling Green, 13 for 166, averaging 12.8, along with 63 and 2 touches. Olabisky Johnson out of Colorado State, 12 for 239, 19.9 average, 58 long and 3 touches. Some of the most stingiest defenses of Week 1 was Utah, 59 yards given up, 13 passing, 46 rushing. Air Force, 75, 45 and 30. Georgia Tech, 146, 69, 77 are the breakdowns. Georgia, 152, 61 pass, 91 rush. And Clemson, 163 for 46 and then 117. Some of the top offensives, Colorado State, 937 yards total, UMass, 887, Rice, 836, Texas A&M, 758 yards, and Memphis, 752 yards. Alright, as for the games for week number 2, first game, we have the Memphis Tigers, 1-0, versus the Navy Midshipmen, 0-1. Memphis favored by 4.5 on the road, points 70.5. Picking the Memphis Tigers to win, covering the 4.5 and over on the 70.5. Next, South Carolina State Bulldogs versus the UCF Knights. Knights are 1-0, picking the Knights to win. Next, the Savannah State Tigers versus the Miami Hurricanes. Miami Hurricanes coming off that loss in Week 1. I do have them bouncing back and winning in Week 2. Next, the Clemson Tigers 1-0 versus the Texas A&M Aggies 1-0. Clemson favored by 12.5 on the road. And points of 54, I got the Tigers winning, covering, and over on the 54. The 0-1 Florida State Seminoles versus the Stanford Bulldogs. I got the Seminoles winning. The Western Michigan Broncos 0-1 versus the Michigan Wolverines, also 0-1. The Wolverines are favored by 27.5 at home. points of 51.5. I am taking Michigan to win. I got Western Michigan covering the 27.5. And then taking over on the 51.5. Next with Rutgers Scarlet Knights 1-0 versus 1-0 Ohio State Buckeyes. Buckeyes favored by 35 at home. I had them winning. I got them covering at 35, and I'm taking over on the 59. Next, the New Mexico Lobos 1-0 versus Wisconsin Badgers. I think they're 1-0. I didn't write the record down. Wisconsin favored by 35 at home. I actually having Badgers win. The Lobos cover the 35 and under on the 54. Next, the Penn State Nittany Lions 1-0 versus the Pittsburgh Panthers 1-0. Penn State favored by 8.5 on the road. I got Penn State winning, covering the 8.5 and over on the 58. UCLA Bruins 0-1 versus the Oklahoma Sooners 1-0. Sooners favored by 29.5 at home. I got the Sooners winning. I got UCLA covering at 29.5, taking under on the 64.5. The Youngstown State Penguins 0-1 versus the West Virginia Mountaineers 1-0, picking the Mountaineers to win. Tulsa Golden Hurricanes 1-0 versus the Texas Longhorns 0-1. Texas favored by 22 at home. I have Texas winning. I have Tulsa covering the 22. I'm taking over on the 61. The Air Force Falcons 1-0 versus the Florida Atlantic Owls 0-1. Florida Atlantic is favored at home by 10. I'm giving it a 10 to Air Force. Florida Atlantic will cover that, and under on the 63.5. Next, I have the Southern Louisiana Jaguars versus the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. I got the Bulldogs winning. Incarnate World Cardinals versus the North Texas Mean Green. North Texas winning. Next, I have the Liberty Flames. Don't know why I said it so weird. Liberty Flames versus the Army West Point Black Knights. Knights lost game 1. Army's favored by 10 against the Flames. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 57. Next, we have the Ball State Cardinals 1-0 versus the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at 1-0. Notre Dame favored by 33 at home. In French Lick, I have the Ball State Cardinals covering the 33 and under on the 61 overall points. California Golden Bears 1-0 versus the BYU Cougars 1-0. BYU favored by a field goal at home, covering and over on the 46.5. The Utah Utes 1-0 versus the Northern Illinois Huskies 0-1. The Utes favored by 11 on the road. I got them covering the 11, winning the game, and under on the 49.5. Next, we have the Sacramento State Hornets versus the San Diego State Aztecs. You got the Aztecs winning that one. New Mexico State Aggies 0-2 versus the Utah State Aggies 0-1. The Battle of the Aggies. We have Utah State favored by 24. I got Utah State winning. New Mexico State covering the 24 and under on the 62. Next, we have the Connecticut Huskies 0-1 versus the Boise State Broncos 1-0. Boise State favored by 31 at home, winning, covering, and over on the 64. Next, we have the Washington Huskies 0-1 versus the North Dakota Fighting Hawks. I got the Huskies winning. Next, the USC Trojans 1-0 versus the Stanford Cardinals 1-0. Stanford's favored by 5. I have Stanford winning, covering the 5, and under on the 56.5. Next, with the Arkansas State Red Wolves 1-0 versus the Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide are favored by 36.5, with an over/under of 65.5. Winning, covering, and over. Next, with the Georgia Bulldogs 1-0 versus the South Carolina Gamecocks 1-0. Georgia favored by 10 points on the road, winning, covering, and over on the 55. The Auburn Tigers versus the Alabama State Hornets. Auburn winning. Next, with the Appalachian State Mountaineers 0-1 versus the Charlotte 49ers 1-0. Appalachian State favored by 2 touchdowns on the road, winning, covering, and over on the 50. And last but not least, we have the Troy Trojans 0-1 versus the Florida Atlantic A&M Rattlers. We have Troy Trojans winning. All right, that's going to wrap up week number 2 of the NCAA college football season. Starting in week 3, I'm going to go down the 10 teams that I predicted to be possibility to playoffs to kind of see where they're at after 2 weeks. Sometimes a loss in week 1 can affect where you fall, what the committee thinks of you. Definitely check out the video on Rubber Sports Show from the beginning of the year, which kind of a realignment with the NCAA. I will definitely get a link put into that, so you may have already seen it. Maybe I'll put it toward the end. I'll see where I put it at. But definitely check out all the other shows on Robert Sports Show. NFL Week 1 is up. If you're a pro wrestling fan, notice the theme of all the pro wrestling shirts and when I do videos. NASCAR fan, I got the NASCAR previews up. So all that on Robert Sports Show. As always, thank you for watching Robert Sports Show. And don't just have a great day. Have a spiffy day. Robert Sports Show, your YouTube leader in sports channel content.